Howdy folks, and welcome to the sealed tournament of the century presented by mtg-world.com. Each player opened a factory sealed alpha starter and 3 Legends boosters. So if you like old cards, awkward commentary, and questionable plays, you've come to the right place. I'm Nick, here with my co-caster Adam, who also took part in the tournament. And this is the first quarterfinal match between Will and Omar.
Alright, looks like Omar's taking a mulligan, and he's not too happy with his script sprites, it seems.
Script Sprite seems like a pretty good turn 1 play. I'm surprised to see him mulligan that.
Yeah, you can't beat some 1-1 for 1, right?
Well, I'd rather play it on turn 1 than turn 10. Will is content to keep his 7-card hand. Let's see if Omar feels the same way about his latest 6.
And it looks like Omar is probably going to mulligan again.
Going down to 5, that's pretty brutal. I'm not sure what Omar's looking for, but I can't help but feel like his first mulligan did more harm than good. 2 cards can certainly make a big difference in a longer game.
I don't think this format is about card advantage, though, so, it's probably very good to mull. Probably got some combo brewing.
Oh yeah, Sealed Deck Alpha, definitely a very combo-heavy format.
Yeah, especially when comboed with Legends.
Alright, we're almost done shuffling here, hopefully for the last time. Will shaves 1 off the top. Let's see what Omar gets. Alright, it looks like Omar is staring at Script Sprites, an Unholy Strength, and a couple of lands.
It looks like he has something like a Vampire Bats on top.
That's a heck of a 5-card hand.
Yeah. Alright, turn 1, 1-1 flyer. Can't beat that, can you? Alright, Will plays a swamp, passes.
And down comes the Unholy Strength.
Oh, you got Delver of Secrets over here, His his 2-card combo Delver of Secrets.
Just like that, Will's down to 17.
Passes turn again.
And 14 now.
Plays a Wall of Bone. That's a 1/4 for 3 that regenerates for 1 black mana.
And though you won't see the word Defender printed on any of these old cards, nonetheless, walls have never been able to attack.
Let's see.
Will with his 3rd land, but does he have a play to go with it?
Alright, he's got a Raging Bull. That's a 2/2 for 2 colorless and a red.
There's plenty of those in this format, that's for sure.
Alright, getting in there. Will's down to 11. Omar plays the Vampire Bat. That's a 2-mana 0/1 that flying that pumps +1/+0 for 1 black, but you can only spend a maximum of 2 black in this way.
It's too bad there weren't any Mirage packs in the sealed pool. Celestial Dawn would be quite the combo with that Vampire Bat. Anyway, Will's contemplating his options here. And he elects to drain life the Vampire Bats for 1, sending it to the graveyard.
Yeah, it looks like he didn't kill the Script Sprites because he didn't have a 3rd black mana source, so he couldn't hit it for 2. So Will gained 1 life there, but now Omar just got back in with 3 more damage.
Taking him down to 9. Will with his 2nd Raging Bull.
He doesn't look too happy with those Raging Bulls. And 3 more coming in. Will's down to 6. And he has a Wolverine pack. That's a 4-mana 2/4 with Rampage 2. So Rampage is an ability that for each creature beyond the first that blocks it, it gets +X+X. Here, X is 2.
Herloon Minotaur and a Black Knight coming down for Will, but still nothing that can handle that flyer.
2/2 for a striker with pro white and a 2/3 vanilla. Alright, Will's down to 3 with that attack. And we got a War Mammoth, which is a 3/3 trample for 4. Will draws a card. Does he have an answer? Nope. And that's game 1.
It's too bad he couldn't play that giant spider. Didn't have access to green mana, though.
Yep.
Alright, the players are getting ready for game 2, and through the magic of modern technology, we've managed to skip through several minutes of sideboarding and shuffling. Will sided in a Celestial Prism, I guess not happy with his mana situation last game. Omar sided in a Wall of Shadows, just reinforcing the first game's game plan of winning through the air and gumming up the ground.
Alright, looks like Omar is going to mull. Or no, that was, yeah.
Looks like Omar's got a great hand.
He just didn't draw enough, can't. Alright, got turn 1 Vampire Bat. Alright, Will's got a weakness. -2/-1 enchant creature. Alright, turn 2 Emerald Dragonfly. That's a 1/1. And you can give it first 1/1 flyer, and you can give it first strike for 2 green.
And Will responds with an actual Grey Ogre.
Alright, getting in there for 1. Alright, and then he plays a Giant Turtle, which is a 2/4 for 3.
But it can only attack once every other turn.
Very overpowered.
Well, it's certainly good enough to get the job done here, keeping that Grey Ogre at bay.
No attacks from Will. Alright, getting in there. Oh, is it for 3? Or, sorry, 2. So +1/+2 from the Pendlehaven. Nope. Will bolts it beforehand, so no damage.
So Will's still at 19 here. And a Scrib Sprites comes down for Omar.
Passes turn. Drops a Black Knight, 2/2 first strike, protection from white. Gets in there for 2. Will's down to 17 here.
So far, this is looking very similar to game 1, with Omar getting small but steady damage through the air and no one really finding favorable attacks on the ground. Will untaps. Draws a great card. Looks like a Hypnotic Spectre. Plays it almost immediately. That's, of course, a 2/2 flyer, and if you hit your opponent with it, they have to discard a random card. Very powerful. One of early Magic's most iconic creatures.
Alright, looks like Omar just played a Raise Dead on his Emerald Dragonfly, which returns it to his hand for 1 black, but he played it again just to have some extra blockers for that hippie. Alright, Will puts a Giant Strength on his Hypnotic Spectre, which is +2/+2, so now it's a 4/4 swinging in. Now, even with the Pendlehaven, Omar doesn't have enough power to be able to kill that Hypnotic Spectre.
Might have been a different story had he resurrected that Vampire Bat.
Yeah, he would still have to wait a couple of turns because he wouldn't be able to pump it immediately. And he wouldn't be able to play it immediately either. So if he doesn't draw another black, it would be, 2 turns later.
Excellent points, but he could chump block for at least 2 turns, giving him a little time to find an answer. Unless he's contemplating actually taking this hit here.
Oh, I guess Omar didn't know you had to discard a card at random, so let's let Will choose one.
That's okay. Looks like Omar got his pick anyway. Discarded a Ghosts of the Damned. Omar down to 16 now.
Gets in there for 3.
That puts Will to 14. And Wolverine pack once again for Omar.
This is the Rampage, the 2/4 Rampage 2. Four more.
I'm a little bit surprised that Omar didn't leave behind a blocker for that Hypnotic Spectre, especially now that he's discarding Reincarnation, which itself could reanimate yet another blocker.
He plays a Land of War Elves.
A great turn 1 play, not so relevant here.
Swings in with the team. So what is that? So Will's actually played a Jade Monolith the last turn. So that's a 4 mana artifact that you can pay 1 mana to redirect damage from a creature damage that a creature you control would take to you.
And that is a poly artifact, so he can use that as many times each turn as he wants to, though Will only has 1 mana available at the moment. Nonetheless, it looks like he's found a favorable block.
He's likely just going to redirect the damage from the giant turtle to himself so that neither of his creatures die.
And that's exactly what he's done here. He's still taking a fair amount of damage here. That'll knock him down to 7.
Yep. Take 7, go to 7.
Now, Will's got a Disintegrate in his hand.
Alright, so he swings in for 8 with the team.
Puts Omar to 4.
Disintegrates.
And that Disintegrate finishes the job.
Alright, looks like we have a game 3 coming up.
Once again, we're going to skip over several minutes of sideboarding and shuffling. Will sided in an Earthbind, perhaps coming to realize that Omar's deck seems very dependent on small flyers for damage. And while we have the time, let me take a moment to introduce our players to you a little bit. Omar is from the United Arab Emirates, where he owns a magic store. It's called Geeky Lizard, and his website is geekylizard.com. That's Geeky lizard.com. He's told me that his favorite deck in the history of Magic is Mono Black Discard, and his favorite card is Hypnotic Spectre. So it's perhaps a little unfortunate that he was on the receiving end of such a vicious beatdown from Hypnotic Spectre last game, but you can definitely see why he enjoys playing the card. Will is from Alabama in the United States, and his favorite card is Army of Allah. He has a collection of over 100 of them, some of them even professionally altered. He also told me that he was particularly excited to open an Earthquake in his card pool. Now, we haven't seen an Earthquake in either of the previous 2 games, so it'll be interesting to see if that comes into play in this final game. Both players, having mulliganed once, are dealing their 6-card hands. Omar scryed and kept on top, so it looks like he's happy with his hand. As is Will, who scries to the bottom. Both players just play a swamp and pass.
I got to turn to Drudge Skeletons. So it looks almost like the hand that he mulliganed when he had 7.
Yeah, again, it's not really clear what Omar's looking for in his opening hands.
You got to turn to Weakness.
Weakness, a great tool for getting rid of regenerating creatures.
Oh, can't play that. That costs 4. Alright, we got a Frozen Shade.
A potentially very powerful creature, but it requires a significant mana investment every time you want to make good use of it.
Ooh.
Will plays his Hypnotic Spectre.
Turn 3.
That was the deciding factor last game. It remains to be seen if it can be just as effective this game, but it's definitely the sort of thing that requires an immediate answer. And even though from the art it looks like that Frozen Shade should be a flying creature, in actuality it does not have flying, so it can't block that Hypnotic Spectre. Omar's gonna need something else to deal with it.
Alright, so Omar's casting a Demonic Tutor, one of the most powerful spells in the game, but if you don't have other powerful spells in your deck, it's not that good. So it looks like he just passed by one of his answers, a giant spider, and maybe he's just looking to make sure.
Of course, anything he tutors into his hand does run the risk of being discarded should he take another hit from that Hypnotic Spectre.
Alright, he does get this giant spider. Now, this is a pretty common creature, 4 mana, 2/4. It does not fly, but it can block flying creatures.
Sounds like that spider has quite the reach.
He gets in for, looks like, going to be 1 when he pumps it. Now, something that's interesting is Omar decided to put a land when he had 2 lands in his hand. I would have held that land so that I would decrease my chances of discarding the giant spider whenever I get hit by that Hypnotic Spectre. So
it's definitely a consideration.
Now he has a 33% chance, whereas he would only have a 25% chance.
So that Shade knocks Omar down to 18.
Alright, let's see if Will can pick the right card. Ooh, that's a deadly blow right there.
Absolutely devastating. And down comes a black mana battery for Will.
So this is a 4 mana mana rock, so you can tap it just to produce a black, or you can tap 2 and tap it and
put a charge counter on it.
And then whenever you tap it, you can remove any number of charge counters and it'll add that many black mana in addition to the black mana that it already provides.
Definitely a very powerful resource in combination with cards like Disintegrate, Drain Life, and Earthquake.
Alright, Omar gets in for 2 more, and plays an Emerald Dragonfly, so...
Yep, Will's now down to 17. And Will untaps. Let's see if he can find a way past that Emerald Dragonfly.
Alright, it looks like Will has a Drain Life in his hand, so he could actually pay it and then Drain Life the Emerald Dragonfly with his 3 remaining black mana, including the black mana battery. And even with the Pendlehaven, it would not survive, so he can get rid of that War Mammoth in Omar's hand because he knows what he has. But perhaps Will doesn't know that the black mana battery can actually provide a black mana.
It seems like that might be the case. It's a very wordy card. A lot of people don't know that you can tap it, remove 0 counters, and still get a black mana out of it. Then again, he may just be looking to finish Omar off in one blow, with one massive Drain Life.
Right here, down comes the War Mammoth. 3/3 trample for 4 mana.
Not an immediate concern for Will at such a high life total. Still, it might have been pretty good to just take it out of Omar's hand in the first place.
He's got a counter on that battery now.
And here's Barktooth Warbeard, one of the legendary creatures from Legends, a 6/5 for 7. Doesn't quite compare favorably to what you can get for 7 mana these days, but nonetheless, a great creature to have in this format.
Here comes a Headless Horseman. It's just another Grey Ogre, 2/2 for 3.
The battlefield is starting to look quite crowded here. Will untaps his 6 lands. Of course, Will still has the option of casting Drain Life on the Emerald Dragonfly, but without...
No, he has that.
Yeah.
I think maybe he's just deciding to save, maybe charge up some counters so he can hit for a big Drain Life this time.
It certainly seems that way. I wonder if it doesn't actually make sense to use the Drain Life to get rid of a creature, though, given that we know he has at least 2 other spells in his deck that can make use of all of that black mana battery, namely Disintegrate and Earthquake. But, there's a Wall of Shadows, certainly a great answer to the likes of Barktooth Warbeard, given that it takes no damage from creatures that it blocks.
Another counter. We got a Black Knight coming down. Looks like the board is getting pretty clogged up. But it seems like Will now probably wants to save that Drain Life to hit Omar directly to the face.
And there's a Throne of Bone from Omar. Now whenever either player casts a black spell, Omar can spend a mana to gain a life. It's not a particularly powerful effect. I can't help but wonder if Omar wouldn't have been better served with something a little more impactful in that deck slot.
We've got a Fallen Angel here, so this is a 5-mana 3/3 where you can with flying, where you can sacrifice a creature and get +2/+1 until end of turn. And Omar pays 1 mana and gains 1 life, and he's up to 19. Or is that right? No bluffs from Omar. Plays this Forest.
Looks like Will's got a Howl from Beyond in his hand. Still another effect that can really benefit from an abundance of mana.
Alright, he's getting in there with the Fallen Angel. Omar takes it.
So with the potential damage from that Howl from Beyond, Omar is very close to being dead.
Alright, so he's down to 16 already.
Not to mention, Will has a huge board that he can sacrifice to that Fallen Angel.
It looks like he's holding the Forest this time as a bluff. Another counter goes on the black mana battery.
And that potential Howl from Beyond gets just a little bit louder.
Alright, looks like he drew his sideboard card, Earthbind. 2 damage and loses flying.
Now, if Omar doesn't use Pendelhaven, that Dragonfly is going to die. Let's see what Omar decides.
Alright, looks like it survives, but probably won't be blocking anything this turn.
Now Will can safely get in with both of his flyers, the Spectre and the Fallen Angel. And he does so, 5 damage, knocking Omar to 11.
Discarding the Forest.
Things are looking pretty grim for Omar here. An Oceanus Golem comes down for Omar. It won't change much.
It's a 4/6 for 6.
Now, if Will's feeling courageous enough, he can attack through the air for more than 20 damage on this turn. Will plays his own Pendelhaven. Of course, this tournament was played with modern rules, so both players can have a legend in play at the same time.
Looks like Will's getting in and sacrificing the team for lethal. And that's a wrap for match number 1.
So Will wins the first quarterfinal match, advancing to the semifinals. Thanks for watching, everyone. And stay tuned over the coming days for the remaining matches. And if you like what you see, don't forget to click subscribe.